Welcome to another episode of Stick to Rugby, brought to you by Defender, and we have Quins, Newcastle, Leicester, and England legend Mike Brown with us for the show.
Rugby was always in both sides of the family, so my mum's brothers played rugby. My dad always played rugby in the fire service.
Dicko's your mate. I mean, he used to play with him at Quins.
He's not my mate. As soon as he pulled on that ref's jersey, he's not my mate anymore. If they didn't win or there was a try scored, I took it so personally that it was like it was my fault. And Nor's in the ruck and you were at the bottom of it and your hand just came in, just gave me a little warning and just whacked me on the private bits. As if to say, mate, calm down, you little Nors.
Pipe down.
And I just looked down, I was like, oh, it's low. I probably had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, a bit of that thing where...
Really?
I think
mate,
so,
you couldn't tell.
I think I played that.
I couldn't tell.
Talking about Eddie Jones, I think I should have stuck up for myself a bit more. Maybe he would have had more respect for me if I'd done that. What annoys me a little bit today is I kind of just took it. I could just tell that they were going to team me up with something, and I was like, right, I'm not having any of it. It's so soon after.
So raw still.
So really. Raw, yeah. You haven't reflected on it. You haven't dealt with it, processed it.
Do you want to be called Mr. Angry or Sloth? Brownie, great to have you on. Great to have you in the front seat. Lol never gets to sit in the front seat.
I don't.
Have you ever sat in the front seat, Lol?
No.
It's embarrassing.
Feel
privileged.
I'm where I should be. In the back.
Yeah, driven round.
I was in the back row.
Lord Dallaglio.
It's nice getting driven around though.
No, it's a nice car, mate.
Especially by a Welshman.
Yes, yeah. Well, now look, you finished your career at Leicester. We have to talk about the Gallagher Premiership Final. What are your thoughts on it? Sad?
Yeah, it was sad, mainly for those guys, Ben Youngs, Dan Cole, legends of the game, legends of that club. Not to be able to finish it, with the storybook finish, the storybook ending, not to give them that, is sad. But no one gave us a chance.
No.
Bath were the clear favourites. What they've achieved through that season with the 2 cups up till then was amazing. So they were the clear favourites. They ran away with the league as well. So for us boys to stick in the fight the way we did, especially around that point in the game where they had that try disallowed Bath, that could have swung a very different way for us. But we stuck in there and to get as close as we did. And then the disappointing thing for me is that for us to kind of not lose the game, but that kind of decision from Carl Dixon, Dan Cole kind of tipped it at the end. It's a shame when that happens, isn't it? It's
Well, he's come off the bench, isn't he? And he's ended his career on 71 minutes with a yellow card.
Someone like that who's done so much for the game, and you can't just have different things for different people that have achieved certain things. But
Dicko's your mate. I mean, he used to play with him at Quins.
He's not my mate. As soon as he pulled on that ref's jersey, he's not my mate anymore. Yeah, look, do you know what? Like, I don't want to slam referees, but he did not have his best game, did he? And I'm not sure why he was given that game. If I'm honest, for me, there's a couple of other referees that would have been ahead of him, in my opinion, to get that game. Christoph Ridley, people like that.
It's a tough job, though, ref, and
yeah, it is.
We do bash when they get it wrong, but yeah,
harder than it's ever been, really. I mean,
yeah, it is.
It's easier if I referee.
Because everything's scrutinised. You've got the replays.
It is, but then that situation with Dan Cole, I don't think it was. I mean,
no, I get.
He had time to look.
I mean, I agree with you, and I don't think. I mean, I'm not sure what someone that is supposed to do. It was clumsy, but it was clumsy and penalty at the best.
But I don't think
it was. I don't think it was a yellow card. Finn Russell got up straight away. And I thought that the punishment was too severe. Yeah. And as soon as you look at that player, there has to be a very good reason why you would give him a yellow card. But I'll be honest, Brownie, I thought, going into that, yes, Bath were the overwhelming favourites, but they hadn't won for a long time. And I thought with Michael Cheika, you seem to have had the momentum. I mean, the second part of the season, he's definitely brought what's he brought into that squad. Is he just reminded everyone of what Leicester Tigers, the old values of rugby, what you're all about? I mean, what has he done that's been so different to what was going on there previously?
Yeah, in terms of reminding us what Leicester's about, I don't think anyone needs that come into that environment. It's very clear and obvious what we're about. And with that group of lads for the whole time I've been there, and then from looking from the outside, it's no question about what the values that place holds. You know, the grit, the determination, resilience, never say die, never take a backward step, the fight. That's always been there, whether we weren't performing well or we were, like this year. Always brought us a bit of clarity around how we want to play, how we want to do things. Very much linked in things like the strength and conditioning and the fitness stuff we did very early on, the foundations of what things are built on, the wrestling that he brought in, and align that into how we wanted to play. And then it was just, as we went on, bringing in kind of the emotional side of how that links to the way we want to play, and making sure emotionally we were ready, to be physical, because you know what you guys know, rugby boils down to is the physicality side of things. You know, that's what everything's built on. If you're not physical, if you're not, have that physical intent in everything you do,
complete it, mate.
then you can't build on that. So
you've got to look at Shanks' face to realise that.
That's bad. Now, what do you put your career down to, Brownie? Because you're 39 years old. I had to actually have a double check at that. You're 39 years old. You kept yourself in really good nick. Like, how do you play top level sport for that amount of time? What do you put it down to? Is it genetics? Is it luck?
No, it's definitely not genetics with me. I mean, I'm not most physically gifted, athletically gifted at the best times. But I think it's early on, in the academy days, and then as you get into the first team, you get more success. I think it's realising those behaviours and habits that you need to perform at the highest level, or to do that consistently, and making those habits consistent as well. So it's the recovery, it's the review of games, it's the constantly seeking and asking for feedback, it's working on your skills all the time. A good example for me is high ball skill. Like, I think it's been one of my strengths, one of my super strengths in my game. It's what people talk about in terms of me as a fullback, but when I joined the academy, I wasn't very good at it. I was very inconsistent.
Really?
Yeah, and I was told very early on by Andy Friend, who was the head coach at Harlequins at the time, with Dean Richards' DOR. They very much told me that I wouldn't play first team rugby at Harlequins if I didn't sort that out, because that's one of the main fundamental parts of being a fullback. So I had to go away and work on that, and I did that by finding the best person in that environment to do that. And it was Gavin Duffy, who had a Gaelic football background, Irish international, another brilliant fullback. And he was unbelievable at high ball. So I just pulled him aside, and fair play to him. He worked hard on that skill with me. Just things like that. Just trying to improve your game all the time, get the habits right, and then it's being consistent and just keep doing that, whether you're 39 or 18.
I think Brownie, as you get a bit older in your career, certainly with me, it's either the mind or the body. The body, I had a couple of significant injuries which don't help. So you've obviously managed to, I'm not saying you haven't had injuries and operations, but you've managed to limit them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a little bit of luck and a little bit of how you look after yourself. But the hardest thing, I think, is, even at my age, when I retired at 35, the body was giving up on me, and therefore it starts to affect your mind, because you can't give your best. For you, is it also that, like, what kept you motivated?
Yeah, do you know what? I think my whole career, reflecting on that now while you asked that question, I probably had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, a bit of that thing where...
What, your entire career?
Really?
I think
Mate,
so, I think I played that.
I thought you had one on both shoulders.
Yeah, a few on both shoulders, I think, yeah. I think that was a massive driver for me mentally. I didn't have that background where I didn't go to a rugby playing school. I didn't play England schoolboys, for example, early on. It was a struggle getting county representative.
So did you always feel like you had a point to prove?
I think so, yeah. I felt I always had a point to prove in that sense. Got a kind of a lucky break with the opportunity with the academy, and I was like, I'm not going to let this opportunity go without putting everything into it. And then you get a bit of success there, and then there's the first team you can see training over on the other training pitch, and you're like, right, I'm going to do everything I can to get there. You get there, then it's like, right, everything I can to play for the first team. Then it's international honours, and it never felt like I should maybe be there, because I didn't have that background, that pathway that's like most normal usual
Well, that's
players.
good though, because it means you never look like you're always comfortable. Because some people get there and they feel comfortable, but maybe your pursuit of being relentlessly, your desire to improve, because you're not naturally a very angry person, right? But when you go on the field, everyone says to me, "What's Mike Brown? He looks really angry." He said, "Is he okay?"
And I remember asking Jamie Roberts that.
I said, "I think he's okay." Yeah.
When Jamie Roberts came to Quins, I was like, the first question I had was, what's Mike Brown like? Because on the field, you portrayed this super competitive bloke that would question everything, a bit like Dan Biggar.
I took everything personally. I was so competitive, everything personally. Whatever team I played for, if they didn't win or there's a try scored, I took it so personally that it was my fault, and what can I have done better in that situation or anything like that. I just took it personally. I hated everyone else that was against us because they were trying to take away what we wanted essentially, which was winning or achieving things as a team. So, I took a lot of things very personal.
But do you think if you didn't do that, then you wouldn't have been?
It was the way. It was the way I got the best out of myself, I think.
Yeah.
And also, I just remember like when I was like maybe 14, 15, I played in a game at my local rugby club, and I got beaten up a bit, and I didn't play that well. I let things get into my head, and kind of threw toys out the pram, which I have done as well as a professional. But in not the right way, it really affected my performance. I just remember my dad pulling me aside after and saying, "Look, when you step on the pitch, it's a chance to be a different personality, a different character to what you are in."
But I think people don't realise that, because for a lot of players, they're able to go out there and be on the pitch and just be themselves, right? But for certain people, I mean, when I went on the pitch, I promise you, I'm not that person. I'm not that person all the rest of the time.
The strutting around.
Exactly. So,
no strutting him now, mate.
But people don't realise you almost have to morph into something else in your character, to get the best out of yourself sometimes,
Yeah, I think for me, it's all finding out what in every aspect is how you get the best out of yourself, the habits that you need to get the best out of yourself, the personality or character you need to have. Some people already have it. Someone like George Ford, he's so calm, collected, very level. He's like that in their everyday life, and that's how he gets the best out of himself. But then for me, I have to act like a bit of an idiot too.
Stick to Rugby, brought to you by Defender. Let's go back to the very, very beginning. Why rugby, and where did it start for you? Why rugby? At what age? Where did it start?
Yeah, so rugby started for me very early on, when I was about 5, 6 years of age. Rugby was always in the family, both sides of the family. So my mum's brothers played rugby, and my dad always played rugby in the fire service and things like that. He was born in.
You said you didn't go to a rugby school then, is that you didn't?
Yeah, no. So I just played grassroots at my local club. Just went to a normal state school.
What was your local club?
Salisbury Rugby Club in Wiltshire.
Oh, so you're a carrot cruncher, right?
Yeah, not quite. It's not that far there. Yeah, but I'm from Wiltshire, so I've lost the accent now to London side. So
Richard Hill's.
Richard Hill.
Club, yeah. Marcus Olsen.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I remember Marcus Olsen being down there and doing a bit with him. Did a bit with him at county level. So I was down there and just played grassroots through there, and then.
And always sort of back three, full back, or did you play all over?
So I grew up wanting and playing fly half, which a lot of people laugh at because I'm not known for my passing ability.
A lot of players end up doing that, especially at the start of their careers.
Yeah.
And then.
Do you know what?
I thought you were going to say in forwards. I mean,
no, because I was real skinny.
Well.
Like I was not physically gifted whatsoever, real skinny and things like that. Still am really, but so I was a fly half, and it's the glamour position. It's like that or 9. If you're built like a back, you want to play there. And then when I went to a sixth form college, which was actually quite good for rugby. I think because it was in Winchester and the area it was in, quite a lot of independent schools around there. And then they, the kids that dropped out wanted to go to a normal sixth form college, and they were quite good at rugby through that pathway. So we had a good team, and that's kind of why I chose it. Had a good rep for at sixth form college rugby, and then when I got there, a guy called Mike Marchant, who's actually Joe Marchant's dad,
Wow, yeah,
was the coach. Yeah, he was the coach there, and he moved me to fullback, and I was fuming. I was livid. I didn't want to do it when they're kicking and screaming. He had to pull me aside and be like,
well, I mean, from being a player who's involved in everything,
Yeah.
suddenly you get put to fullback, and you must think, well, this is a bit different. I mean, I can't have any, you have to be a bit more patient.
Yeah, but then it's one of them where you go there kicking and screaming, but then you suddenly realise, actually, this is really suiting me. I could kind of roam around.
Yeah.
I could still get involved, around the ruck off 9 and get involved off 10, be at 10 sometimes, still not passing that much, but you could just get involved everywhere. And then the counter-attack stuff came into it, which I really enjoyed as well. And once you start getting more and more success in that new position, the more you want to stay there. And then that's when I guess my career kind of really took off, from when I ended up getting picked up by Harlequins.
So was that was at what age then? You in their academy?
Yeah, so sixth form college, what's that, around about 17.
17,
Yeah,
right.
so I moved there, and then around that time, teams like Harlequins, you could still go on a Tuesday and Thursday evening to join up with their academy players who were full time to make up the 19s and 21 squads.
So the game was just early stages professional rugby?
Yeah, so they had those under 19, 21 leagues, but they only had 10 people in the academy day to day, so they had to fill in the gaps with people that would come on a Tuesday and Thursday night and train. So there was hundreds of kids there. So I went along with 2 guys that were going from my college, jumped in a car with them because I didn't have a driving license still at that point. We'd leave college, drive up there, about an hour and a half it took, train, come back. My dad would then pick me up from Winchester because I was still living in Salisbury, and I would do that, and then just got picked up by the academy coaches there, Colin Osborne and Tony Russ.
Good academy, great people actually.
And then when I left sixth form college, a couple of years later, then I got signed up full time, and then that's where it kind of kicked on from there.
And so rugby was the kind of choice. I mean, I know this happens with a lot of outside backs and backs, particularly saying that, well, if I hadn't played rugby, I was, on the books for Chelsea or Spurs or something like trials like Danny Care. I'm sure they make it up really, but
they just go to them summer camps, don't they?
Exactly.
Run by Chelsea Football Club.
Exactly. But if you hadn't been a rugby player genuinely, is there any other sports that you were kind of into, pursued, or were you actually thinking one day I want to grow up and do something completely different?
Yeah, look, growing up, I was lucky that my parents introduced me to all sports, like football, cricket, hockey, basketball, rugby. But I knew very early on that rugby was more suited to me and the way I was and the way I enjoyed playing sport and things like that. So, when it got into teenagers, I very much focused on that. Yeah, I played a bit of football at school because it was very football dominated. But apart from that, it was grassroots on a Sunday, and that was my main focus. I was quite a sporty person, but I don't think I would have been at any other level than in any other sport.
And was there any sports, like from a rugby perspective, who were the players that you sort of admired, looked up to, were playing that when you were sort of thinking about signing for Harlequins? I mean, you can say Tom Shanklin if you want, but
no one does, mate.
There's not many
really.
Well, she's on the list. I'm sorry, but
correct answer. Correct.
Yeah. Do you know what? I didn't have any specific players. I grew up with that 1991 team, the Grand Slam team of like Rob Andrew, Dean Richards, people like that. So I grew up. Peter Winterbottom was a bit of a family favourite, so my dad loved him. So I automatically liked him as well. But Jerry Guscott.
I was actually in the crowd that day. It was at Twickenham.
Yeah.
Philippe Saint-André scored that try with the worldie. That is, and then England won the Grand Slam, 21-19, I think it was, or something.
Yeah, and that 91 World Cup
91,
as well.
91, that's it. And I remember being in the West Stand, but quite near the front, standing, and they came. There was a line out right in front of us, and Brian Moore could not, even with 40,000 meters, he couldn't hear the call. You couldn't hear because the noise and the atmosphere was so incredible that day, and it was. I can see why that sort of generation inspired us all, really, to be honest with you.
What game would you say, Bryony, that Lars describing there, an atmosphere that was incredible? What game played in, would you think?
Definitely 2013, that kind of Six Nations decider against Wales at it was a Millennium Stadium back then.
I can't remember what happened there.
Yeah, I wish I can't remember.
England won that one.
I mean, it was unbelievable. I've never experienced anything like it. It obviously helped with the roof was on as well. I'm not sure who in the England camp decided that was a great idea, but yeah, like just the choir, the build up, the warm up, like I absolutely loved it. Like it gave me so much, motivation, things like that.
The passion that,
that
these guys have for rugby.
We've been trying to recreate that atmosphere.
Unbelievable. Like it's one of them where you like feel it. You can't just hear it, you can feel it, and it's so close and it's all consuming and kind of on top of you.
Inspiring, really.
Yeah, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced, especially at that point. I was still quite early, getting back into the England squad and things like that. And obviously, it didn't go our way, but like that atmosphere, I'll never forget it.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because you go to foreign stadiums or different stadiums, and you might not win, but you still love the atmosphere there.
Yeah,
it's still.
I very much fed off that sort of atmosphere. I think I loved it, especially playing against Wales, just because I seem to be the villain, the English villain. But do you know what? I kind of liked it.
You thrive on that.
Yeah, I think so. And I just loved. I grew up from a young age, right? Like I said, watching the Five Nations, Six Nations, those rivalries, and there's no bigger for me than that England-Wales one, especially when you're playing over there.
Yeah.
The abuse you get, and obviously sometimes it does go over the line, but the abuse you're getting, the talk in the week, in the media, the two teams kind of going back and forth, everything spoke about in terms of that rivalry, that history you're playing for, and the fact, like I said before, like I took everything so personally, and none more so than playing an England jersey. Like that was, for me, that was like be all and end all playing for England.
How was your relationship with the media? Is it something you enjoy? Because there's one interview that springs to mind.
That was after Wales as well, wasn't it?
It was after Wales as well. I mean, look, we can look back and we can laugh now because you're out the moment and it's gone, and you're retired. But I suppose at the time, someone says to you, you've got to do media duties.
Yeah.
You apparently don't want to.
Yeah, I'm not.
Because sport is emotion.
Yeah, I'm not the character or personality that likes that thing or feels comfortable. I've grown more into it as I've got older, but I'm not naturally looking for that sort of
limelight.
Yeah, doing that sort of thing. And it's all well and good when things are going well, and you're a certain character like me, quite Marmite.
But you don't mind that you're Marmite.
I like Marmite.
No, I don't. But when things are going well, people kind of like it.
I like
but if things aren't going well, then you're going to get it. You're going to get more of the stick. And that interview, I guess some context around it. You're at a World Cup, you have to do media. Like at least two people have to do it. And after that, there's not many people that want to do it. So I got thrown out there to do it. And I could just tell that they were going to team me up with something. And I was like, well, I'm not having any of it. It's probably the biggest loss of my career. Yeah. We're all going through so much in that change room. It's so soon after.
So raw still.
So
really.
Raw, yeah. You haven't reflected on it. You haven't dealt with it, processed it. You're chucked in front of someone who wants to really, poke and prod.
Oh yeah, they're looking for a story.
Yeah, it was with the Welsh TV lot as well. So I knew it was coming, and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to just bat it back and just say something like,
It's one of my favourite interviews. That and Brendan Venter. Remember he did one?
Yeah.
With
it resurfaced not long ago on Instagram, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, on Wales Online probably.
Because I thought I'd got away with it for a few years, and it resurfaced again. And a lot of the young lads in the Leicester squad that hadn't seen it before, oh, look at this.
I can imagine you finishing that interview, going past the media liaison officer and going, told you I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, literally it was like that, yeah.
Well, listen, Mike, a couple of quick ones. If you could, apart from your debut, which is a special day, obviously, for all of us, if you could pick one moment from your career internationally or any part of your career that gives you the most amount of pride, the day that you just, it doesn't get any better than that, what would that be?
Wow.
You can do club and international.
Yeah,
you've done a lot with both.
I mean, club would definitely be Harlequins 2012.
Yeah.
Premiership win, because it was a young English-based core team, a lot that have grown up together with
some of the names of the guys.
Danny Kerr, George Robson, Jordan Turner-Hall, George Lowe, Chris Robshaw. Ugo Monye was a bit older, but we'd kind of grown up alongside him.
Ugo played rugby, did he?
Yeah, no,
I thought he was just a presenter.
I've never heard of him, mate, to be fair. Singles.
Yeah, people like that we'd grown up alongside, and it was the first team to do it in Harlequins history as well, so that was even more special. we had great times.
And broke the mould really, because I mean, you know, the title in those days was held by, you know, I mean, there'd been different eras, you know, the Bath era, Leicester in the first professional era, you know, obviously ourselves, Wasp briefly, then Saracens, and Quins, you know, were always known as a side that never, a cup team really.
Which we were fully aware of, and also I think we broke the mould a bit in how we played the game.
Yeah.
I feel like it was one of the first teams, if not the first, that really started to play that, you know, open brand, offload, high tempo, playing from everywhere. And because we were young, you know, exuberant, really excitable.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah, high risk, high reward. We had no fear in doing that. We didn't give two. I won't swear.
And in the white of England, is there a day that stands out as just being memorable, or one that, you know, and it doesn't have to be, I mean, now obviously they tend to be wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I think early on was the New Zealand one. Was that 2013 as well?
13.
Yeah, 13. Just because who we were playing against, we were still really early in our development as a team. I was on the wing, so I was out of position. So all week I was, I don't know if, am I allowed to swear? Crappy.
They're the best. I mean, you know, they're, if not, along with South Africa, they're the best team in the world. So the first time that you play them and beat them, it feels like a moment in your career, doesn't it? Because that you'll remember, because it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, and I was pretty stressed during the week because I hadn't played wing a lot, let alone international, let alone against them. You know, with that back three that they had, Corey Jane I was up against, who's an absolute beast, one of the best wingers I've played against. Yeah. Israel Dag, I think, was at fullback as well, so I was nervous for that. But then to get that win, the way we did, we just hung on at the end. It was just grit that got us over the line. But like you said, to do that at Twickenham as well, the atmosphere was incredible.
What was your relationship like with Eddie Jones? Because you speak to different people and they've got different opinions of it. But I'm right in saying that he used to back you no matter what.
Yeah, I have two kind of perspectives on it, which I think gives me quite a good, I guess, perspective again on that.
Yep.
I was in that camp that you're saying, where, you know, you're in the one that he has picks every week, values and things like that. So he kind of not looks after you. He never looked after me, but, you know, kind of left me alone.
Yep.
Didn't really have too much
back and forth.
Yeah, I think so. He's trusted me, and then there was a moment where that just switched, and I suddenly wasn't anymore. You know, he must have had a change in the way he thought he wanted to play the game, and wanted, you know, Elliot Daly, for example, to go back there. He had it in his head he'd be more attacking, which is fine, but it was just suddenly I was in that camp of not valued anymore, spoke to in a certain way. Everything was a problem.
And very different, I would imagine.
Very different, and what annoys me a little bit today is I kind of just took it, but the thing is, he has that such power over everyone because he's got what you want. And for me, like I said earlier, playing for England was everything to me. So when he has that power over you like that,
but you felt like if you challenged him, you wouldn't even be.
Yeah, I just thought, get my head down even more. I kind of went more into myself, more reserved than I already am as a kind of introverted, quiet person off the field anyway. I'd even more so hiding in my room. I thought, just keep my head down, it'd be fine, I can back myself to get back in.
I suppose you've almost answered the next question now. I was going to say, if there was one, but maybe not, if there's a one moment in your career, and it's been an incredible career over, you know, many, you know, you've had lots of highs and a couple the other way round, is there one moment you could, if you had the chance again, you'd do things slightly differently?
I think, talking about Eddie Jones, I think I should have stuck up for myself a bit more. Maybe he would have had more respect for me if I'd done that. Maybe he would have put a different thought in his head instead
maybe
of
just. You wouldn't have even been in the squad.
Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I wouldn't. But at least I could have. Yeah. Maybe I wouldn't have. Not regret it, but in that sort of question, come back with. I think just as a person, as.
And you strike me as somebody who wouldn't ordinarily. That would have been natural to you to have done.
I never liked doing that in terms of selection, going to have arguments or back.
Well, it didn't work for your mate Danny Kerr, did it? Really?
No, it didn't. But then he ended up getting back in, so maybe Eddie had a bit more respect for him for doing that. I don't know. I think maybe I should have just, you know, not go and shout at him and cause an argument, but challenge him a bit more.
Just fought your corner.
Yeah, not I guess scared or whatever. You know, again, I
wanted
to do that last World Cup. Yeah, and I thought I could, like I said, back myself to get back in, and I really think I could have had a good impact on that World Cup, whether it be a squad player pushing Elliot or used in certain games. I still think in terms of that final against South Africa, I think you need a certain fullback that has those fundamentals locked in, and not like Elliot Daly doesn't.
No, sure.
He's an amazing player, but he was very early on in his fullback.
Yeah.
In terms of backfield positioning,
The amount they kick
high
the ball.
ball, the amount they kick it, and they did kick it. You know, there were times where I look at it and I think George Ford's catching that, and then he's getting smoked.
Yeah.
You know, in that position, I would have been swapping or trying to swap, or I don't know. I think I could have offered something, or even the prep in the week. You know, I think I could have offered something. But then again, they had that amazing semi-final, so. You know, they almost did it. So who am I to say anything?
That was quite.
You're always going to back yourself, right? So maybe that. But in terms of leaving earlier than I did, not at all. Because in terms of Harlequins, again, like England, I loved that club. Like that was everything to me. You know, apart from England, just under that was Quins. That was where I grew up. I had all my whole adult life there up to that point. You know, I'd met my wife.
And loyalty is a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's both ways, and you know, and I think you know, there's a point where you think the club are everything to you, and you are to them, and then I suppose you realise maybe as at the very end, you know, maybe that things change a little bit. Who then, given that, and given that you spent most of your time there, who was your best mate in rugby?
I think in terms of people that would know me best, people I'd spent the majority of the good times in my career with, have the best moments with, probably that group of 2012 young English, you know, Jordan Turner Hall, Danny Kerr, Ugo Monye, those three stick out because I still speak to them to this day. Not as regularly as you like, but everyone's doing their different things in their lives, but we had such amazing times together.
And they can be the ones that will take the mickey out of you and it will get to you straight away.
Yeah.
They can hit the spot,
and vice versa.
Vice versa as well. Yeah. Did you know that?
Did you used to get a lot of like piss take thrown at you?
Yeah.
As a player,
by my teammates? Yeah, of course, my teammates, because they know what I'm like. I can be a bit.
They just look for weakness.
Is that because you took it
I took it really well, as you can imagine. I didn't take it personal at all.
You find a weakness and you go for it.
And I'm not one of them. You know, some of those guys that are so quick to come back at you. I'm not that person. I stew on it a bit, and then I might go too like.
Do you go to bed at night thinking, I've just thought of something. Wish I'd said that.
Yeah, exactly. Or I go back with something too to the bone, or too aggressive, or
So obviously you picked up lots of different nicknames, but Mr. Angry might have been one of them. Do you think that's fair then? I mean, it is fair, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Or you could see why.
Yeah, I can see why, but when it first came out, I didn't like it because I felt like I was a bit misunderstood, I guess. Like, and you just end up thinking, why can't they see it? It's just because I'm really competitive and I just really care and I want people to see that. But yeah, there was times where you get to a certain level and you go over a bit. But hopefully there wasn't too many times that I did that. But you know, now I look back and you kind of laugh at it. And
you can.
But that was your niche. That was your USP. Everyone needs that.
Mike Catty always used to say to me as well, I think I was moaning about something like that, you know, getting called out or something else, or getting some slack in it, getting some abuse in the media or whatever. Yeah. I was speaking to Catty about it. He was like, well, you don't want to be vanilla, do you? You'd rather be, you know, have a character and people see that than.
Do you want to be called Mr. Angry or Sloth? Stick to Rugby, brought to you by Defender.
I'd be interested to know, your toughest opponent on the rugby field wouldn't necessarily be, the fullbacks you admired is one thing, I suppose, but in many ways it's not really the fullbacks that end up testing you as much. It's anyone in the back line, really. I mean, who was the hardest person you've in terms of for you as a fullback to play against? Who was the hardest person?
It's funny you say that, because I've just had images and visions of when I early on in my Quins career play against you lot, and it was in a ruck and I was being that angry, you know, Nor's in the ruck and you were at the bottom of it and your hand just came in, just gave me a little warning and just whacked me on the private bits as if to say, mate, calm down, you little Nor's.
Pipe down.
And I just looked down, I was like, oh, it's Low.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, 2003 World Cup winner, brilliant. Toughest opponent.
You were like Hopawati before he was famous, weren't you?
It's like, what are you still doing here? I thought you'd retire.
You still here? My best work when it's the only way I could get near you if something break down.
I was being a right little nose, I think.
Who would come through like a break, and you think,
But the toughest opponent was Alessandro Tuolangi, because it was in that Leicester team that were just unbelievable. And I was very new to Premiership rugby, and as a fullback, as you'll know, like you're always picking up the last attacker, which is usually the winger. And he would run over me, he'd run round me, he'd smoke me in defence. Like we've all seen those clips of a bend on in that game. I like to think I took it a bit better than he did.
Well, the last thing you want is someone like that to have a run.
Yeah, I had a bit more weight. I had a bit more weight behind me, I think. But it was just like he'd love playing against fullbacks and just smoking them. He'd be chasing kicks and they'd land him on the money and you just get smoked. So he was. And
who? If you had to pick a fullback that you had incredible strengths in lots of different ways, but if you looked at like the best fullbacks that played in your era or even before your era, who would be the one or two that would stick out to be and go, do you know what? I was talented, wasn't I? But if I could have been like that, it would have. I mean, Christian Cullen was the most incredible fullback, but that was probably long before you played. I don't know.
I think growing up, Serge Blanco, again, showing my age, but like for me, he was the all-round fullback, and he also had that aggression and that passion.
Not showing your age with us two, mate.
And also, like going back to when I first got into rugby around 91, that World Cup. That quarter final where he catches that high ball and he starts filling in the English wing. I can't remember his name now.
Nigel Heslop.
Just starts filling him in. I was just like, this is amazing. So him, but then when I was, again, just starting out in the Premiership, Jordan Murphy for me at Leicester, like he's...
What a player.
All-round fullback, the fundamentals of a fullback absolutely locked down, but then also had that X factor. He's just like the flair he had. Everything he's one of the players that everything looks so easy.
Super skillful.
He had some serious little bit of
and again,
techers in his armoury of doing stuff that no other players would even think about doing in a game.
Yeah, and again had that aggression and competitiveness as well, which I loved, which you need to have when you're at Leicester to survive. But definitely him, and I think he's still up there for me with the greatest Premiership fullback in my opinion. He's an unbelievable player. And then kind of in the international scene, again I played against some unbelievable players like those Ben Smith and Israel Dag from New Zealand.
Ben Smith was unbelievable.
But
almost had the most incredible career without people even noticing.
But then he had
which is a compliment.
Him and Israel Dag, they played together, like Israel Dag with the goose and the outside break and the skills as well. And then you got Israel Folau, just the athletic ability that he had, and like I haven't played against a player like him that could just turn a game with that X factor, like just handing people off, just running around people that with that, like they're not
so
even
many specimens around.
Did you have can you think of a player who was either underrated that you played against, or maybe just didn't get the recognition necessarily that their talents deserved? Is there anyone that sticks to mind?
At Quins around that early period I was talking about, George Lowe got injured very early on in his career. I've got no doubt he would have gone on to really compete with Jonathan Joseph.
What makes me laugh now is, it's just in France, props are treated slightly differently. They're like revered. Like you look at someone like Mark Lambert, right? And, Lambert now.
Bless Lammy.
Now he's absolutely.
He's one of the people that's just desperate to get a little bit of recognition. Great team man, but no one sees what he does.
Look at Will Collier, for instance. Will Collier now is probably more famous as a rugby player than he ever was at Quins. And he's
Ollie Cohn as well.
He's like a lord down in Cass.
Yeah, Ollie Cohn who.
That's a good pivot. That's a good pivot, isn't it? In a new business.
He'd be one of them as well. Like great team man, and for us, like in that period where we won a few trophies as Harlequins.
Welshman, Ollie Cohn.
Yeah. He sounds
one cat for Wales.
He went into camp, and tore his hamstring straight away, and it was because he never trained with Quins, and they made him do fitness. He tore his hammy, but he was a big old unit. Like how heavy would he have been?
He's still big now.
He's like.
I don't know. They all lie about their weight, don't they? Really.
But he locked down that scrum for us because.
Who was the guy that you grew up, either opponent or in your own team, that you learnt the most from?
I learnt loads from Andy Gummersall.
Did you
again?
really?
Yeah. Because back then, when he joined Harlequins, we had no idea about performance, being professional, what kind of, I guess, a little bit of what high performance looked like, what a professional athlete. I mean, he wasn't that much.
Well,
of an
no,
athlete,
but I'm not
what
funny.
a professional
I mean,
athlete should
People
do.
laugh and joke. When we were at Wasp, we did, you know, we were one of the, when we turned professional in 95, 96, we were probably one of the teams that had adapted to what that meant quite a lot quicker than others, you know. And often it's not about how much you train, it's about how well you train and how professional you are when you do train.
It goes back to the habits and discipline I was talking about on one of the earlier questions about longevity, and he had longevity, but when he joined Quins, he was the first guy there that had a notebook in a meeting. Now everyone has.
Yeah.
But like, we were just like, who's this Nors with his notebook? It's not a lesson. But then we all started thinking, oh, actually, this is quite good. And we all end up, by the end of the season, you know, that becomes a habit that everyone's doing. You know, it's contagious. You know, he was looking after his body in terms of recovery that none of us were doing, and us as youngsters were like, oh, that, you know, we should be doing that as well. And then he trained with Margot Wells in his own time to make sure he still stayed sharp. And you know, athletic.
That was the one that always scared us, lol.
And at his own cost as well.
At his own cost, and then you know, I ended up doing exactly the same because he then saw something in me, but said, you know, you could help yourself physically here. Go and train with her. You know, 19 years later, up until the end of last week, I'm still using her for the performance, the physical body management side of things, the physical performance, speed, and things like that. To my end of my career, so you know, I owe him a lot.
When I was at Saracen, it's like the Wasp boys always used to train with Margot Wells.
Yeah,
and that used to scare us a little bit, thinking, right, why are they doing that and we're not?
I think, look, you know, when you're in a high performance environment, you know, it's you always think that what you're being shown and given is the best, and I just think sometimes it's good to be curious and look at things outside.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I joined the Margot Wells team after I ruptured my ACL because, you know, I had to find my speed and it took me a long time. I was a quick lad growing up.
Yeah, you played sevens, didn't you?
Yeah, played sevens, quick lad, and then suddenly
won a World Cup.
I never mentioned it actually.
Every episode we do.
But when you, Margot taught me a huge amount about that, and I enjoyed it. But then I made sure that I sort of, it was okay for me because I could tell everyone what I was doing. I'd turn up with my fitness coach at Wasp and I'd tell him exactly, you know, listen, you're going to be in charge of my program, but I'm just so you know, this is who I'm seeing, etc., etc. I think a lot of lads did it without.
But now that's quite common.
I did.
Like now it's quite common to have a sprint coach or someone from athletics to cross
individual
over and
training.
Well, with all due respect,
96,
I'd go and
unheard of.
I'd go and see my own physio as well.
Yeah,
Kevin
Lidlow. What a guy.
I had no issue with going to see him because, with all due respect, it's my knee, not yours.
Exactly. So I think
I chose the surgeon for my knee operation. I didn't go with the club's advice because I wanted someone who actually operated on knees every week.
I think it's early on finding out.
That helps.
I think it's finding out as an individual what works for you, because you got to imagine, like, you know, the strength and conditioning people are looking. There's 3 or 4 of them, and they're looking after 50 odd lads. So yes, they have the generic, you know, overlook of things, but as an individual, you need to also work out what's good for you, and if that means going out and finding, you know, someone that's going to be able to do that, which is what I ended up doing. And like you were saying early on, I had to go and do it on top of the training we did at Harlequins and didn't tell anyone because I couldn't. Then as I got more successful, I had the kind of clout to be able to go and do that, and then
and the confidence to feel that you weren't, you know, you weren't being sneaky about it. You're investing in yourself. I mean, often it came at your cost.
It did, yeah. I've still paid to it.
Your extra time, because it has to be outside of that. Just thinking about, I think you've probably given us a couple already, but what are your top 3 kind of, you know, of your long and illustrious career that's just finished now? What's the top 3 things that you remember? What are the 3 best days of your rugby career?
Yeah, I think firstly, as soon as I had our first child, my son Jax, I wanted to run out on the field with him. And I got to do that for I think it was 300th game for Harlequins against Sarries as well. So it was a big occasion. Wow. It was on a Friday night. Friday Night Lights, there's always a bit more atmosphere to that.
Quite spicy.
Quite spicy. We didn't win, but like we were close. And you know, those sort of games, you know, really bring the best out of us as a team. And to do that was amazing.
It creates memories, for not just for you, but for your family and for your boy Jax. What number 2?
Again, it would have to be that Quins 2012, because it was kind of the first real big silver. We'd won the Europa League the year before, which was great.
Still good. It's still good.
Yeah, it's still good. And we had to beat Munster along the way. Wasp, I think we beat along the way. because it was back when the third place teams would drop down, so there was good calibre in it, but there's nothing like winning the Premiership, as you'll know, Lowell. So to win that for the first time for the club as well. And then third, I'd have to put the Grand Slam up there, 2016, because it was off the back of that 2015 massive disappointment, where we took a lot of flack after that, and rightly so. We felt like we'd let down the nation. It was our home World Cup, getting dumped out the way we did. It took its toll on a lot of us, and I think it still does a bit, but that winning the Grand Slam off the back of that kind of put that to bed a bit.
Put right surfing,
yeah.
What does life hold for you now, mate? Now you're retired, officially now, yeah?
Yeah, officially now, yeah. So
there's no comeback, no plea from anyone.
Today was my first day full-time. I've been doing it part-time, but full-time as director of high performance at a fintech company called Stubborn Edge in town.
Okay.
In Banks.
To be honest, you've exited rugby.
Yeah.
But you've seen the writing on the wall for a few years now, and it's fair to say, whilst you've still been playing at the highest level, you've managed to combine that with trying a few things along the way, so that you could take this step. There'll still be a bit of trepidation. And you'll still wake up and there's things you'll miss, there's things you won't miss, but it feels like you've tried to prepare yourself and upskill yourself in the best possible way.
Yeah, I think it started maybe a couple of years before I left Quins, where I really started to look at what I wanted to do, and that was a difficult thing, thinking about what I wanted to do and what that looked like. And then
you started doing a bit of studying?
Yeah, I did studying, because a role that really jumped out at me was that kind of sporting director, which is big in football, or general manager, which a few teams have in the Premiership kind of structure, where they're essentially like the CEO of the performance side. So they're aligning up all the different departments on the performance side, like the first team, the medical department, recruitment, S&C, academy, to align that to the club or organisation's goals and culture and vision. So everyone's pulling in the right direction. So that's what jumped out at me. That's what I did my studies in. So I got a master's in sport and directorship at Manchester Met. Did that, completed that. So I'm not as thick as some people thought. But then
you actually had to pass the exam as opposed to being given it.
Yeah. But then my next thing was trying to get experience in that role, and it never really materialised. I didn't know where I was going. So then I was really interested in the high performance space and doing that as kind of like a consultant, which I kind of put out there on LinkedIn. And then the CEO, founder from this company that I've started at now, Stubborn Edge, reached out to me and said there was a role that they were looking to fill as director for high performance, which is in a space that I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
And the fact I could start it part-time, which I started about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
On my days off from rugby.
Find your feet.
Find my feet, yeah. And then start full-time today, once I'd finished. So, yeah, I've been really lucky, really. But it's been, a lot of graft with the masters, but also connecting with people, getting into different environments, speaking to people.
Sure, yeah.
Trying to get experience.
You wrote, I have to say, before we finish, I must ask you this. You wrote a very impressive and impassioned letter, really, announcing your retirement from rugby, obviously thanking lots of people that have helped you to achieve everything you've achieved in the game, which is incredible, but also it was a bit of a call to arms, really, and a bit of an impassioned plea for rugby people in rugby, or the rugby lawmakers, or the people who run the game, to sort of come together, really, and make some unselfish decisions. Well worth a read, by the way, for anyone. I don't know where they can find it, but I managed to find it online. But what sort of inspired you to do that, and kind of what was that all about?
Yeah, really? I knew the moment was coming where it'd have to be announced for a good few months, like I said, with the job opportunity, things like that. So I had a good, couple of months to think about it and kind of put something together. And I didn't want it firstly to come across all, poor me, end of career, sad, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to look forward.
Cry me a river.
Yeah, I wanted to look forward and show that I'm energized and motivated. Yes, it is kind of sad finishing one thing, but how exciting is it for leading into the next thing, and how lucky have I been to have had experienced that for so long as well. But then also, it was a moment to be able to say what you feel about the game. And like I said, I've been involved in the game at various different levels since I was 5, 6 years old, from grassroots all the way through. So, you know, I want this game to thrive and prosper at all levels. I want young people to have the opportunities that I've had for the game, whether they get to the level that I've been lucky enough to get to, or they just enjoy it on a Sunday afternoon playing grassroots. I want everyone to have that opportunity, and it's such a great game, as you'll know, in terms of values and what it can teach people, not just young, but of all ages: teamwork, leadership, resilience, hard work, toughness, physicality, all those things that this great game teaches us. I want people to be able to experience that, and it just feels maybe the moment has come where this game could kind of flitter out and not be with us anymore. And I don't want that to happen. I think for me, one of the main issues is getting people aligned, getting the right people into rooms, being creative, being innovative, making decisions that are right for this game, that allow it to get back to the levels it was getting to, so that, like I said, people can have opportunities, whether watching, playing, participating, you know, on and off the field. So I just hope that people can do that, and that's club, that's governing bodies, that's leaders throughout organisations, and that's, you know, from World Rugby downwards. You know, everyone just needs to put their own differences, selfish decisions aside, thoughts aside, to do the right thing for this great game, so we can get it to the level it should be at.
That's a great call to arms.
It is a good call to arms.
Mike Brown, thank you so much for joining us today. Brilliant.
Appreciate it.
Can we do this road trip again, please? Because it's way better than Joe Marler.
Yeah.